Okay. Is it a different video stream than the other one? Than the reminder one? Okay, I don't have the video up. I'm not going to do video up unless I absolutely have to. That way I can keep the note stock up and everything. Prep all my crap here. I've even got YouTube chat up so I can actually respond to it this time. In real time, yo. Real time. It's probably good to do that. You get a cat. Just as vocal as the freaking dog. Yeah, he's loud, bro. Or she.
This town with the speakers loud and the radio playing old Sublime that we stole online, every verse we know. And we hadn't had a clue if we'd make it by noon or even where we'd go. We don't need a map, everywhere is home. We don't need a map, everywhere. The tank said E and we all agree that we're just too broke. Fill it back up, so we left your truck on the road with Ro. Then we found a motel with a cigarette smell, so we knew we're close. We don't need a map, everywhere is home. We don't need a map, everywhere is home. Is where I can find some peace of mind to make my own way. I don't know where I will end up, but I'll find it someday. Keep on searching.
You got music playing?
Okay. But don't get left behind on the road.
It's gonna drive me crazy not actually hearing music. But get used to it.
Don't get left behind on the road. Don't get left behind on the road. We played Tupac Shadrach and we turn our music up when he raps about hope. We hold our thumbs high and hope someone is kind enough to give us all a ride. And we wouldn't have a clue if we'd make it back to or even where we'd go. But we don't need a map, everywhere is home. A Ford stopped on the street, said where you trying to be. don't really care. We'll know it when we're there. We took on down the road. He flipped on his radio. Santeria started slow, so we knew that we were close. Home is where I can find some peace of mind to make my own way. I don't know where I will end up, but I'll find it someday. Keep on searching, engine burning while we're turning it around. But don't get left behind on the road. 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 Home is where I can find some peace of mind to make my own way. I don't know where I will end up, but I'll find it someday. Keep on searching, engine burning while we're turning it around. But don't get left behind on the road.
You say you need a hero, someone to set you free. You say you need a hero, but don't put your faith in me. Don't put your faith in me. No. We all get lost sometimes, we all fall sometimes. The darkness in our hearts makes us shine like little stars. We are heroes. We are heroes. Heroes. We are heroes. We are heroes. See you walking through dark lands, searching for a strong hand. Take the reins and don't let go, but don't put your faith in me. 'Cause I'm your hero, at least not tonight. 'Cause we all get scared sometimes, we all fall sometimes. The darkness in our hearts makes us shine like little stars. We all get lost sometimes, we all fall sometimes. The darkness in our hearts makes us shine like little stars. We are heroes. We are heroes. Heroes. We are heroes. We are heroes. Heroes. We are heroes. Say you hate the darkness, 'cause it's a lonely place. We all need the darkness, 'cause that's what makes us heroes. What makes us heroes every day. We are heroes.
I guess I do need to have the video up because I need to see the new intro and everything. You did do a new intro, right? 'Cause you said you were doing a new intro. Finished? Oh, okay. Never mind then. Never mind. That'll just have to be a mid-season thing, yo.
I lived 17 floors open when it rains. I can feel
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
my window pane lets me know that I'm still here. But when the sun comes out, I will go outside. When it breaks through clouds, I will give a smile. Lets me know that I'm still.
You should add the hashtag to the screen, the video screen. What's up? The We Are Gen Orange one. And add this somewhere in there. After the intro, you can display the words or something. I don't know. Add this.
I can see the city through my watered eyes. Lets me know that I'm still here. When my eyes clear up, I will go outside. I'll imagine you're still by my side. Lets me know that I'm still here. Sometimes I want to run away.
Cisco. He goes, just got out of the shower. Let me clothe myself.
To the nearest place where I'll find all my old friends. Times I said good times, find my friends again. I said I wanna have good times, good times, find my friends again. And good times I said good times, find my friends again. I said I wanna have good times, good times, find my friends again.
You should be looking at YouTube chat, by the way. I really hope somebody clears, like somebody adds some chat before we go live, because they're shit. Oh man, they can hear me? Why didn't you say something, Edson? Or did you not know? Or maybe she's talking about me typing in chat. No, because I didn't say anything else. Oh, okay, that's good enough. Oh yeah, no, Blues. We upgraded. We upgraded quite a bit. Much better internet connections now.
Hey, I don't think you're there, but it's 2 a.m. I'm awoke and scared. I'm alone tonight. Yeah, I'm alone tonight. Do you still sleep with that old brown bed that I won for you at our first date fair? I'm alone tonight. Yeah, I'm alone tonight. I know some days we all cry. We break down, yeah, we lose our minds, let it go sometimes.
C-minus 3 minutes, guys. 3 minutes. Actually, probably be like 2 minutes and 20 seconds by the time you guys hear this.
We all cry. We break down, yeah, we lose our minds, let it go sometimes. Got to let it go sometimes.
Yeah, y'all get to hear my hot mic all the time now. It's gonna be great. The only thing y'all gotta keep in mind is I do actually have a manual mute button on my mic, so I can do that. However, Edson won't be able to hear me if I do that, so I'll probably just stay live until we get a break. Oh, you know, Liam, we just gotta throw around some fun. Gotta have fun. I do think it's funny though that Callow actually thought we were thought there was some chance that we might have been pre-recorded. Maybe that was Blues. Did we get Blues on that earlier? I think we did. One and a half. Oh, well, I wasn't looking at my clock, to be fair, so it was an educated guess. Well, it might be if he's on his phone. Because you add in our delay, and then you add in the delay from YouTube, and then you add in the delay from a mobile internet connection or something, and that could easily be a minute and a half. All right, all right. That means you're gonna have to be the one to kick it off, Edson. Just so you know. I don't have a clock to follow anymore. All right, I gotta be quiet.
A real clockwork soldier.
Generation Orange in 5, 4, 3.
Episode of 2019 for your favorite Houston Dynamo, Houston Dash, and Houston soccer related podcast and / internet show, Generation Orange. How's it going, guys? And we're back, just in separate screens. Sean, how are you doing, man?
I'm here. Take that for what it's worth.
Well, at least it was a long hiatus, but thankfully we're back on the road to talk about the Houston Dynamo. I know there's a lot of stuff there we're going to be covering today. We're going to be talking about all the offseason acquisitions. Not sponsored by Kickstart.
Nope, but it's really good right now.
We're talking off-season acquisitions. We're talking about preseason, the game against RGVFC, the games in Tucson. We're going to be talking about Houston Dash, U.S. Women's National Team Camp, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to have our very good friend, Jay Adelberg, on the show at around 7:30. So you cannot really miss this. We'll also talk a little bit about our RGV with Down in the Valley Express. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. And yes, this is pre-recorded. This is all.
This was recorded on Sunday, February 10th,
2019.
No, this was recorded in 2018. What are you talking about?
And yeah, but let's go ahead and start with our discussions for today. How's everybody in chat doing right now? I hope y'all are doing really well in 2019. Hopefully this year hasn't kicked you down on the floor yet. That's for October.
All I need now, Edson, is a cigar with this camera feed like this, because the chair leans back far enough. Be very, very primo right now. Just saying. Start it out there. So let's talk off season, man. It feels like it's not been that long. On the one hand, it felt like it was forever. And then on the other hand, it felt like it was not very long at all. So, we're sitting here 3 months since the Dynamo ended essentially I guess 3.5, almost 4 months since they actually technically ended their season. And, we've had 2 signings, 2 international signings. We've had, 3 technically. We've had 3 trades with players that have been brought in. We've seen quite a few players leave, which is okay, but none of the core players left, and that was kind of the key. So Edson, this offseason, we specifically brought in Kiki Struna from Slovenia, a center back who, and we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk preseason, but who has already shown to have a definite physical side.
That's putting it lightly.
I mean, it's fair. We brought in Matthias Vera to partner with Juan David Cabezas there in the middle, and we'll talk about this when we get into preseason a little bit. But out of the offseason acquisitions, if there is one guy that I am most excited about, it has to be, without a doubt, Matthias Vera. And I've said this in Discord chat. I've said it on Twitter if people have asked me. And I've said it to people in person. But Matthias Vera, for me, is the absolute he was like the necessary guy that we needed. he's going to be the linchpin guy. And you see it in preseason. You see in how he plays. You see in what he brings to the team. And I'm just super excited for that. So we'll dive into that a little bit more too. But, and then we also made trades. We brought in Marlon Hairston. We brought in Tommy Mack, which technically we didn't trade for Tommy Mack. We signed him as a free agent. We brought in Chris Duval on a trade. And then we went out and signed Maynard Figueroa, which, let's be real, that was just a result of needing some depth. However, on the flip side of that, we've also seen him starting opposite Kiki. So, I don't know what the thought process is there. Maybe they're not as content with Fuenmayor as I would have expected them to be. But it's very interesting to see him partnered up with Struna because I would have expected that to be time that Fuenmayor would have needed to get comfortable and on the same page with Struna. Mm-hmm. So maybe that says something to kind of the Dynamo's thought process going into this season. But I guess we'll see on that. But what are your thoughts on Struna and Vera? And then we'll talk a little bit more about Hairston and McNamara, Duval, and Figueroa. But specifically, what are your thoughts on Struna and Vera?
Personally, I think that with Kiki Struna, I think we're going to get somebody that has experience at the European level at such a young age. I think it is something that is needed, especially I know at the beginning when we first heard about the acquisition, a lot of us felt that this was in order to help Fuenmayor grow as a center back. Bringing in somebody with that kind of experience, under his belt would help Fuenmayor grow more as a center back. Now, as far as Matias Vera, I welcome it. I welcome that acquisition with open arms because I know, one of the biggest problems was we have Juan David Cabezas, but we needed somebody, almost as good as him, right next to him. We were struggling to find out who was going to be that partner in the midfield with Juan David Cabezas. We tried Arturo Alvarez, we've tried Darwin Seren, we've tried Eric Alexander, and out of those three, it seemed like Eric Alexander was the one that kind of gelled together with Juan David Cabezas more in the matches where Cabezas was able to play. And now that Eric Alexander is gone to FC Cincinnati, we needed to bring in somebody else because, like I said, the other two that we thought would make a good fit, it turns out that they didn't. And so I feel that bringing in Matias Vera, who brings in some really good capabilities, into bridging the defense and the attack as well, I think would help the Dynamo. And not only that, I think it would help Kyoto and Elise, not having to fall back so much, especially with the acquisitions that were brought in on defense as well.
I think that's fair. We've talked before that one of the things that the Dynamo have missed really ever since Alex left was a pivot guy. A guy that can help pivot between defense to offense. And don't get me wrong, Juan David Cabezas was filling that role, but there was kind of a gap. If he was the one pushing forward, that left the defense extremely vulnerable. If he stayed back, that there was one less player kind of plugging into the offense. And what we've seen in preseason from Vera in particular has really impressed me because what he's really good at doing, and this has become very clear, so he's very good at winning the ball in the midfield and above. Mm-hmm. And that just sets your counterattack to push hard, which means that guys like Kyoto, guys like Elise, guys like Mauro and Tomas can all afford to stay higher up the pitch, meaning that they're ready for the counterattack, meaning that it's just them and a defender, maybe one or two defenders, which when we saw that was the case, more often than not, that led to a breakaway, at least opportunity on goal. Not always a goal, but at least a breakaway opportunity. You figure if we can do that more often this season, it's going to be hard to stop these guys. And, quantity is fantastic with this group because we know that they can score. And the more chances they get, the better it is that they're actually going to actually score. Cisco says the FCD kit just dropped.
No one cares.
No, here's the thing. That's just because they know that we're on right now, so they had to drop it right as soon as we started the show.
Of course.
It's them trying to take our hype. But you know what? You can't take our hype. That's not how this goes. Apparently Cisco thinks their kit is trash, which, it's FCD, so that was guaranteed. And then Struna, what I've seen from Struna, and it's really funny because I think back to something that Eddie Robinson has said repeatedly, which is the Dynamo have missed that edge at center back and on defense. And I think, in looking at it, I think that's been the case. A guy who's just and I'm going to use this phrase, and this is my phrase for 2019, a guy who is absolutely take no prisoners. Mm-hmm. This guy doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what you're coming from, where you're coming from, how much money you're making, what your reputation is. He has no problem dropping you. And look, some people are going to be upset that he threw the elbow, and I watched the video. I slowed it down. I replayed it multiple times. Yes, it was an egregious foul. It was a high elbow. But at the same time, I think the guy was already going down as his elbow is swinging by. With that being said, the guy still went down, but I don't think it was quite as bad as the angles make it look. I think if there was an angle on that one on the end line that was actually clear and not a preseason camera, I think you'd see that while he did connect, he didn't connect quite as bad as it looked on the thing.
But it's preseason, and even in a regular game, it's not necessary for you to lift your elbow that high because you're just covering the ball. You don't have to put your elbow out to the back.
Sure, but here's the thing: he's setting a tone for the rest of his defenders. In that case, the red card was completely warranted, and I don't expect him to do something quite like that again anytime soon. But it was one of those things where it was like he was setting the tone for the team. He was saying to the rest of his teammates, "We're not going to get pushed around. Like if they're going to push, we're going to push back." And I think there's ways that he could figure out to not have to be quite so physical. But honestly, for me, I liked it. I know that sounds terrible, but I think you've got to have that edge. And look, yes, it was a red card. Yes, he's got to rein that in. But Liam, I think he looked back and he saw the guy coming, but his head is turning back away as the guy gets close enough where he swings at him. So to say he should do exactly where he is kind of, it's kind of like it could go either way on that one. And I think the thing is preseason. It's a player who's also trying to, and he's probably been told, honestly, we want you to be physical. And it's on Wilmer to definitely, Wilmer to definitely rein that in and they'll get it figured out. But I think people are just overreacting. I mean, this is an MLS where defender, we're kind of getting to the NBA level of MLS officiating right now, where you can't be physical with the attacker anymore because you're going to get called for a foul. They're going to flop because they know they're going to draw a foul. And if they don't draw a foul, they're going to throw a temper tantrum, a la Zlatan or Alessandrini, or any of the other, 50 some odd DPs that believe that they should get every call going their way.
Do you think that maybe the Dynamo is kind of wanting to take up the role as the league villain now?
I don't think that's necessarily.
This is the way I feel. Like I feel like the organization or the team is starting to realize that the league really does not care about Houston in any way and will always be talking negative. So they was like, well, I mean, if they're going to be talking negative about us, might as well, just make it worthwhile kind of thing.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think it's a personality or a reputation thing at this point. I think it's more that they, and again, this harkens back to Eddie Robinson and his days with the Dynamo. They were physical. It was always a trademark of Dynamo teams that you were going to leave the match bruised and banged up. And I don't think there should be any problem with an MLS with leaving a match bruised and banged up. And that means that on occasion, you're going to end up hurting somebody. On occasion, you're going to end up with a red card. It's going to happen, and your team has to learn to play through that. And to be fair, in the first match we played, Minnesota got a red card called against them. Now, it wasn't as egregious as that, but there was something clearly that happened for there to be a red card. Now, actually, I think it was egregious because a guy threw a punch. So clearly, players are trying to set the tone right now in preseason, and I think my problem is that fans are tending to overreact, and it's preseason. It's like, we can't be doing that. We have to be above that. And I'm like, no, you really don't. If you're gonna be a namby-pamby team, then don't expect to make the playoffs. You have to have physicality at the back, or you're gonna get run over by teams with stronger, faster, quicker, more creative players up top.
Harry says it was a dirty play and uncalled for in a friendly game. If roles were reversed, I'm sure hey, it's okay. I'm guessing he means that it would be we wouldn't think the same way.
Yeah, we would.
I don't think he gets suspended.
He says that. He says he doesn't think he gets suspended. I think he gets suspended because I do think it was egregious enough to warrant that. But on the flip side of that, I also think you're looking at a team that's trying to push very hard to get up to match fitness, physical, the MLS pace of play, etc. very quickly. We had 2 weeks of preseason. We had 2 matches before CCL starts. This team couldn't afford to take it lightly. They couldn't afford to play these like a friendly game and just sit back and, oh, whatever, it's a friendly game. We're veterans. We don't need to put any effort in. We didn't have that luxury like we've had in seasons past in the last 3 or 4 seasons. We've had so much more to deal with and so little time to deal with it because guess what? Next week, 1 week from today, we will be in Guatemala. The Dynamo will be in Guatemala, and they will be playing for an opportunity to advance in the CONCACAF Champions League. You don't have the luxury to take it easy in preseason when you're dealing with that.
I think you have a point in that, and we all know the physicality of CONCACAF, and I'm pretty sure that the Guatemalans are not going to be reserving themselves. They're going to be trying to play dirty. They're going to try to do whatever it takes, to get Elise, to get Kyoto, to get Manotas, out of concentration at the game, because they know that maybe they might not. We might be better than them, talent wise. But they're going to be playing in their home country, not necessarily their home turf, but they're going to be playing in their home country. They're playing for something, especially with the fact that right now, Guastatoya is doing horrible in their domestic league. So they're trying to salvage something out of their season for this year. And it just so happens that the Houston Dynamo, who is barely in preseason, they're gonna try to make them their first victim. So they're gonna make it almost impossible for the Dynamo.
At the end of the day, Guastatoya is not going to lay down for the Dynamo. It doesn't matter the reputation the Dynamo has. It doesn't matter that they're an MLS side. It doesn't matter that Guastatoya is a Guatemalan side. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they can to try to advance in the competition. And that's going to mean they're going to be physical. That's going to mean they're going to flop all over the freaking place. That's going to mean that there's going to be stretcher time added. They're, like you said, they're going to pull out all the stops. And they have no problem doing that. So, look, you could say it's preseason. There's no place in that for MLS preseason. But for the Dynamo, this isn't MLS preseason. This is CONCACAF preseason. And it is completely different. When you start talking CONCACAF, you're talking elbows being thrown. You're talking guys getting kicked. You're talking shins being splint. Literally, you're talking guys breaking ankles. Mm-hmm. So, I understand the frustrations over the fact that he threw the elbow and maybe he shouldn't have. But on the flip side, like I said, I'm down for it because guess what? I want this team to be physical this season, especially in CONCACAF. And if that's their prep for CCL, then they got to do it. That's at the end of the day, they got to do it. So I have no problem with it. Let's move on from Kiki for a minute, though, because obviously that's the hot topic of the week. Let's talk about – we already talked about Vera. So let's talk about Marlon Hairston, Tommy Mack, Chris Duval. So these three guys were brought in for different purposes. Hairston is going to be – primarily the backup for Elise and Kyoto on the right side. He may occasionally play right back if we ever have a need to have a backup right back. Mm-hmm. Duval has been preseasoning as a right back. Tommy Mack has been preseasoning as a number 10. And I'm guessing he's the backup for Tomas to give Tomas some rest every once in a while. So you have three veteran MLS players. You have Marlon Hairston, who is young, 24, I believe. 24 years old. You have Tommy Mack, who's old. Don't get me wrong, he's older. You have Chris Duval, who's older as well. And so you have a couple of older players, but a lot of veteran experience among the three of them. And we've seen it already in preseason with Marlon Hairston, especially in the last match, where the guy's got pace. The guy has skill. He has talent. Now, some people will say, oh, yeah, well, that was Tacoma. What is the new name of the Tacoma team? Tacoma Defiance. Yeah, Tacoma. That was the Tacoma Defiance defense. It's a little different. But I think at the end of the day, it's just it doesn't matter. I think he's good enough that he's an MLS player without a doubt. He's not gonna push Elise. Obviously, Elise has that spot sewn up. But we finally have a right winger that is a legitimate right winger that can play right winger, and you can bring him on late in a match when Elise has already tortured the defender, the left back of the other team. I mean, it's the best case scenario. And then you have Memo on the other side. I mean, there's Marlon and Tommy Mack and Chris Duval bring so much flexibility to the substitutions of this team, which, and Cisco's mentioned this, and I want to give him a shout out for this. One of the struggles last season, outside of just injuries, was the fact we didn't have any depth because we had to have depth at defender because of all the injuries. We couldn't afford to have depth everywhere else. So Elise was having to go 90 minutes every match. Kyoto was having to go 90 minutes every match. Tomas was going 90 minutes literally every match. I mean, that wears on a player, especially late in the season, especially when you go so deep in Open Cup, because that's extra matches you're playing at the end of the season when you're trying to push for playoffs. So having that extra depth means we can handle CCL. It means we can handle Open Cup again. And it means that we can kind of handle all that great stuff that we want to be able to do, those extra competitions, without having to worry about players being super tired come the end of the season. So I think it's great. And then let's tag on to that. Again, I already mentioned Maynor Figueroa was brought in. I expected him to be a sub, but at this point, it looks like they're trying to push him as a starter. Now, I could be completely off base. Maybe Fuenmayor maybe picked up a slight knock or something. But just judging from that part of preseason, considering Fuenmayor has had no time with Struna, I'm tending to think that they're planning to start Struna and Figueroa, and maybe it's that Wilmer wants a veteran center back over a guy who's a younger center back who makes mistakes.
Don't you think it might also be, like you mentioned before, that our priority right now is CONCACAF? And in CONCACAF, we want the people who are more experienced, who have experience at the CONCACAF level. While Kiki Struna might not have experience in CONCACAF, he has it in UEFA.
Yeah.
So he's, and Maynor Figueroa, if I'm not mistaken, has some CONCACAF experience.
Well, so he does, because he played for the Honduran national team.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's got plenty of experience CONCACAF wise, and he played for FCD, so he definitely got experience with them in CONCACAF. So I mean, it's a player who comes in with the experience for CONCACAF. And you might be right. Maybe they're willing to forego that partnership between Fuenmayor and Struna right now for the partnership between Struna and Figueroa heading into CCL. And then maybe Figueroa does initially start the season at center back, and then maybe over time Fuenmayor takes that position back.
Correct.
But I still think it's a little bit interesting that Fuenmayor is not that starter. But I understand kind of the thought process.
I mean, correct. What I was also going to say is, like, I think right now short term is CONCACAF because it's so near to us right now. But the long term idea is to have Kiki paired with Fuenmayor, so he can continue to develop like that. But right now, our biggest issue is making sure we get past Guastatoya in CONCACAF, and then probably thinking of whether Tigres or Saprissa.
I mean, yeah. The other thing is, I mean, also you have to keep this in mind too. We also don't want to drop points in the season at all. Anywhere that we can avoid dropping points is good. And we have home matches to start. Cisco, correct me on this. I believe the first 3 matches are home matches, or first 4 out of 5 or something like that are home matches. We need to take, if we're not going to take all the points out of those home matches, we need to at least take, depending on how many matches there are, we need to take, if it's 3 matches, we need to take 2. If it's 4 matches, we need to take 3. We can only afford to drop one of those results. And even then, I only want it to be a draw. I don't want us to lose at home because let's face it, at the end of the day, we need to be very careful also from a Dynamo aspect of focusing on having good results at home, because that's going to drive sales for tickets. That's going to drive butts in seats. That's going to drive those important things, which is your fan support at home, which you're going to need later in the season. You're going to really need it in the middle of the season when guys like Elise and Kyoto are going off for Gold Cup. But we'll talk about that later as well.
So what have you thought about? So we've mentioned almost everybody from that we've got. We have Tommy Mack, Marlon Harrison, et cetera, et cetera. But what about Chris Duval? Do you think he's been underwhelming so far?
No, I don't think he has been, actually. I think he's been fine.
The reason I ask is because there's been so many comments that I've seen that, talking about how Chris Duval has pretty much been burned, especially in the Seattle Sounders match.
I think part of it is he needs time to gel with the center backs that he's playing with. Outside back especially, it is a tough position to come in and claim. You look at a player like Lundqvist, who's a great player, but he couldn't claim that necessarily from Beasley, even though Beasley was old and getting hurt, because it's a tough position to come in and gain that familiarity with the players around you. Because not only do you have to worry about the center backs, you have to worry about the midfielders, you have to worry about the wingers. You don't get the luxury of just dealing with just the player next to you. You have to deal with the player next to you, the players in front of you, the players higher up the pitch, and the goalkeeper on top of that. And look, he's going to be beat, and it's okay. It's a matter of, I think, adjusting to the Dynamo play style, and he's a different player. He's not a guy that necessarily wants to push high up the pitch every time, and he's just I think he's got to learn to play that style of play. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a break, because we are going to get Jay on in just a few minutes, and we kind of need to break now in order to do that. So we'll be back at 7:30, pretty much exactly. So make sure you guys stay tuned. We appreciate you guys hopping in. We see tons of chat happening. It's fantastic. And we'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. Thank you.
All right. So when we come back, we will hopefully have Jay Adelberg on. So we'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back for Generation Orange. And we have our guest for tonight. He is everybody's favorite guest whenever he comes in on the show. Actually, Sean, you do the honors and present him. You do it better.
We've got another Jay Adelberg coming on, our favorite Houston Dynamo ticket sales account. No, not account manager. What is your official title, Jay?
I am actually was promoted at the end of last year, and I am now the manager of youth sales at Houston Dynamo.
Nice.
Is that why you've been so active with youth stuff I've seen on Twitter lately?
Well, that's always been my bread and butter, but now that I'm actually the manager of a small department that focuses on that, it's allowed me to put. Used to be 60% of my business was youth soccer, and now I'd say it's more like 80% of my business.
Nice, very cool, very cool.
And I love it. It's tremendously gratifying. I love work. I have work with some great youth soccer clubs around the area, and I wouldn't want to be working in any other area.
So let me ask this question, since you brought that up and totally not planned questions. So let's see how you answer this. Has them bringing in Paul Holliker as director of the academy, has that empowered you a little bit more to even reach out deeper into the youth club systems out in the local area? Because I know one of the things that's kind of become the mantra for this season for them, for the academy specifically, is partner and development. And I think part of that is getting those youth development. Culture of development, that's right. And getting those. And I think part of that has to be getting those players, those young players, out to matches so they can see at the professional level what's involved tactically, strategically, those sorts of things. So I'm just curious, what are you guys doing to try to reach out to those clubs? I know that's been a question I've seen some people ask, so I'd be curious, what sales stuff are you guys trying to do out there?
Well, first, I just want to say that Paul Holliker, as the director of our academy, has been doing a sensational job since taking over. His vision and global thinking is tremendous, and the strides that he is making in helping us build bridges in the youth soccer community and create meaningful relationships are absolutely amazing. When it comes to his attitude about youth soccer in general, his attitude is very much that a rising tide lifts all ships. And it's about making Houston, not the Dynamo, not Dynamo-Youth, not Rise Soccer Club, not Texans, but Houston youth soccer, the best that it can be, regardless of what shirt the child happens to be wearing and what club they're playing in. And so by approaching it with that attitude, he has managed to make tremendous friends throughout the soccer community. He has gained the trust of a lot of the youth soccer clubs that I think that perhaps were a little bit more dubious of our intentions in the past. And I honestly, I cannot say enough nice things about both what he's doing in the community and how he has helped me personally with my business. The Dynamo Academy and their families is one of my accounts, and his assistance in making things happen there has been tremendous. And I honestly, I cannot say enough nice things about everything that he's doing, the kind of person that he is, his character, and it makes me excited for the future, the things that he's doing.
For sure. No, and in my interactions with him, and I've had a few, I've always come away educated, which is really good. I've always come away with a sense of profound respect for what he knows and what he does. And I've always come away with the sense that I feel welcomed. And I didn't always have that before, if that makes sense. And so, just from my aspect on a personal level, to just back up what you're saying, I have absolutely loved having him in that position. And I really appreciate his focus and effort on community driven. And seeing him push that, because I think that, and I think you can agree with this, that Houston was one of those markets from a youth standpoint that just in general tended to suffer from not enough not enough community combined efforts. Everybody was kind of doing their own thing. And I feel like Paul is just creating this like massive network of within the city where everybody's starting to work together. And I'm really looking forward to 10, 15 years from now when that pays off big time and we start seeing real academy guys coming out of Houston besides your McHughes and the guys that we have coming in the U17s coming up. But, your next level after them where we're pulling in players that we weren't going to pull in before in the Dynamo system. We're going to see players going off to FCD from Houston, but you're going to see Houston, not necessarily Dynamo, but Houston beginning to grow as a premier youth soccer destination, which has always been Dallas's bread and butter. And I'll be honest, I just like you, Jay, I don't want to see Dallas hold that title for much longer. I want it to be Houston, baby.
Yeah, I agree. And we do have some really excellent programs in youth soccer all around the Houston area, both at an academy level, at a competitive level, at a rec level. There are everything, the academy from an elite level, the Texans and Rise and the Dynamo Academy and the Dynamo Dash Youth have DA Academy teams up in the Woodlands. That's, super competitive, great stuff, all the way down to, rec programs like Texas Heat Wave up in Humble or Katy Youth Soccer out in Katy and Westbury Soccer. I mean, just there's such a wonderfully diverse youth soccer scene out there, and I think Paul is doing a great job of really galvanizing everyone as feeling a kind of a sense of that the kids' development is at the top of the pyramid, making Houston soccer the best it can be is at the top of the pyramid, and then everything else is kind of secondary to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's a refreshing attitude. I agree with that attitude and that point of view. I support him 100%. He's been supportive of me 100%. And I think the future in that regard is extremely bright. And also from the Dynamo Academy itself, I think you may have mentioned it, besides Eric McHugh, of course, Leza and Borsos, the two U15 players that got called up to the national team camp. It's fantastic. I know both of those players' parents. They are super, super nice people. I sent them both congratulations notes when the boys got called up, and so they're both good kids from good families, and I hope their future is as bright as it seems right now.
So I'm going to ask you a couple questions, Jay, and these are not academy or youth soccer related, so just bear that in mind. So first question for you, Jay, is how are you feeling ahead of this season?
In general, I listened to the first half hour of the program, just so you guys know. So I know what you covered in the and
Thank you.
I agree. Vera and Kiki Struna, very important additions. It's funny that you referred to Tommy Mack and Duval as older players. They're the same age as Struna.
Yeah, no, it's true. But the difference is it feels like they've been playing in MLS for a decade now. I mean, they haven't, but it feels like it because they've just been around for so long. So, anyways, you can continue. I'm sorry. It's just humorous you mentioned that too.
Yeah, no, I think that Tommy Mack was real significant to bring in, and I loved everything I've seen out of Marlon Hairston so far in preseason. I mean, Struna is clearly a different. He reminds me of, imagine if we had gotten Senderos like 8 years earlier and 8 years healthier. He's clearly got a very keen footballing mind. He brings a tremendous wealth of high-level international football experience to the team. And so I think that we're going to see a lot of things that were disappointing last year. I think those things were clearly addressed with the off-season signings. Frankly, I think we're a playoff team. I think that the most difficult thing will be to manage playing in 3 competitions simultaneously, and figuring out where the pieces fit and all that, and when you got to play who. Even just the first few weeks of the season alone, So we've got the Guastatoya Guatemalan for leg 1 coming up. Then on the 26th, we've got the leg at the stadium. Then we have opening day on the 2nd. Then we have a game on the 9th. If in the event that we go through to the next round, we could potentially host Tigres in between the first and second games. Or if that's assuming Tigres goes through as well. But which they're playing Saprissa, right?
Yeah.
So we could potentially host either Tigres or Saprissa between games 1 and 2, and then yet have a game 3 the weekend after. That is a lot of games. A lot of games.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, Cisco made this.
Yeah, so that makes me a little nervous. The amount of games makes me a little nervous. We essentially have at this point 2 teams. You know, Matt Jordan has said all along, we're basically building 2 teams simultaneously, and it looks like that's what we've got. So, you know, as long as we can manage it, keep everyone healthy, I think that the team looks like a playoff team from where I'm sitting on paper. Playoff team.
Yeah. Okay, so let me throw this out because it hasn't been said on air, but it was said in chat. Cisco said earlier, 9 out of the first 13 matches are home matches this season. And I have to believe that helps with CCL. Not necessarily Open Cup because that comes, you know, that kind of comes a little later, but has to help with at least the initial stages of CCL to have so many home matches together. Because even if you do have to go on the road for for a CCL match, you know you're coming back after that match, and just continuing to, you know, I think it's huge. The fans have to come out and support that, not only CCL but MLS, and continue to support it. The first half of the season, if the fan support is strong, this team is gonna wreck shop, and in a very good way. Let me ask you this question: what was your biggest key move of the offseason for the Dynamo? And I'm going to preface that by saying it doesn't have to be a move that they made. Sometimes it can be a move they didn't make. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
I mean, in terms of the additions, obviously, Struna and McNamara, I think, are a big deal. I was sad to see Chris Seitz go, but you know, that's just kind of how things go sometimes. I think not bringing back Machado was a good move. You know, at that I could hear him creaking as he was running around back there, and so I also, I know that Leonardo didn't have a great year last year. I'm a little biased because he is such an unbelievably nice person that it's hard to say goodbye to someone like that just because he's such a good dude. I was actually surprised. Well, I suppose I'm not surprised. I don't really know how I feel about Senderos. I mean, with the few times he was healthy and out there, he clearly was a difference maker. But he also appeared to be made of glass and held together with duct tape. So I'm not, I'm not 100% sure that that's money well spent. And also another one I struggled with was, Artur Alvarez is an unbelievably great dude. But, there was almost every time when he came in last season, it was a time when you thought, man, if Vicente Sanchez was still here and they were subbing him in instead, I would have a totally different feeling in the pit of my stomach about the next 15 minutes of this match.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw one more out.
I think that some of those guys who didn't perform as well as we would have hoped, like Leonardo, like Alvarez, like Machado, I appreciate the efforts they made for the club, and I wish them all well. I know Machado, I believe, signed with a team in Bolivia, if I'm not mistaken.
The strongest.
I think Leonardo and Senderos are still free agents. I was sad to see Jared Watts go, too. He's another guy. I did some community events with Jared Watts, and talk about a guy who gets it and who is just a real sweetheart of a guy. Again, much like Leonardo, not as sad to see him go because I thought he brought a huge thing to the field, to the pitch, but sad to see him go because he's a good guy. And of course, there's one I'm leaving out that I should not leave out is losing Andrew Wenger. I think was a big loss. I know that Matt and Wilmer did their best to try to talk him out of it and to come back for another year. But Andrew Wenger is the only player in the 4 years I've been here who I ever had fun political conversations with before games and at the stadium. I will absolutely miss talking politics with Andrew Wenger. He is one of the sharpest knives in the drawer, and he challenged me a lot. I like that, and is a good guy too. And I think his presence on the field of all the people that are not coming back this year will probably be missed the most.
Absolutely, and I'm going to throw one at you, and just so you can kind of chuckle, and because most people don't think about this, but the biggest key move of the offseason for me, just to answer my own question, was not selling Elise. By far.
Oh, well, I think we all breathed a collective sigh of relief, right, when he didn't go. It was one of those things where, first of all, I know that we've only got a year left with it, but I also know that he can do way better than Fenerbahce in terms of an Italian suitor. I mean, a European suitor that could come for him. That was not a Freudian slip. I don't know anything. But I know that he could do a lot. I know he could do a lot better than that. I also know that Manotas doesn't really want to leave.
No,
so
he loves it here.
I'm not terribly worried about us losing Manotas. But I know that Elise has big aspirations. And so we should enjoy him this season and expect that we'll get many millions of dollars for him when the time comes, and that next season, hopefully we'll take that money and spend it on the next Albert Elise, you know?
Absolutely. And that's, I think when I look at and we'll break this down, I'm sure, probably not this week, maybe next week, but when I look at it, I think the Dynamo understood that they weren't ready to make the move because they hadn't found and hadn't acquired his replacement. And if you're going to make a move like that, you have to have the replacement in place, because if they would have made that move before the deadline, the guy coming in would have had no time before CCL. That would have impacted CCL. That would have impacted your start to the season. And you would have been throwing a guy in, regardless of how good he is, you would have been throwing him to the Wolves from the very, very get-go. And while you want to see guys be able to handle that, on the flip side, you also want to be mindful that that could completely derail a guy's mentality coming in. You wreck a guy's confidence, it's going to be hard to repair that confidence. And so, yeah, I felt that it was a very shrewd decision to not sell him by Jordan. And I don't think, honestly, Jordan had any desire to sell him this offseason, but he was certainly chuckled by the offers that were coming in. And it's funny, too, and I'm just going to throw this out there as well, kind of before we move on. Elise's numbers last year in MLS play were very similar to Miguel Almiron's numbers, yet the offer coming in for Elise was a third of, or actually a fourth of what Almiron was left for. And so I have to look, and they're roughly the same age. Now, granted, Almiron comes from a different country, yada, yada. But I really genuinely think Elise's ceiling is as high as Almiron's, in my opinion. And it's just interesting to see that kind of difference, simply because Almiron was playing for a team that made it to MLS Cup and won MLS Cup, when in reality, I really genuinely don't believe Atlanta was better than Dynamo last season when Cabezas was in the lineup. I think you remove Cabezas out of the lineup, and this team, obviously, this team is completely different. I think the same would have been this. It would have been the same for Atlanta. When Joseph Martinez wasn't in the lineup, Almiron was a completely different player. With that being said, though, let's move on from that. I don't want to talk about that right now. That's a later discussion. But what I want to ask,
I think also the one.
Go ahead,
Sean. I think a later discussion that we had that's important also is, I think that the biggest off-season move with a TBD, what it is to talk about down the line, will be the departure of Chris Kinnett.
Yes, I agree with that. And whether it's a positive or a negative, it's going to be a negative for those within the organization, because he was such a personable person with people within the organization and most people outside the organization. However, I think that in retrospect, the advantage is that the Dynamo poised themselves very well by bringing in John Walker. And the moves that he's made already, I think are very, very impactful moves. And I am interested to see what he continues to do as this season progresses, and what changes he continues to make. But I definitely agree with you. I mean, that one way or the other, the story is still yet to be written on what that change ends up being, whether positive or negative. With that said, there was a question that came in chat, and I already know your answer to this, but I'm going to let you answer it anyways, because I think it's important for listeners who maybe haven't heard you say this before, say it. But Seattle has released a promotion for college students to be able to get tickets for $10 a match. Do you believe it would be in the best interest of the club to implement a similar plan in Houston for college students?
So I go back and forth on this. So we certainly do some similar types of programs for our closest youth soccer partners. So the Academy, Dynamo Youth. It's not quite $10, but it's in that not far off. And I said on Twitter the other day, the problem with deeply discounted or free tickets is that historically they have never then translated to paid tickets at a regular price. So because the track record for giving things, especially comp tickets, for giving them away is terrible, it's very hard to point to any historical examples of any sports franchise who gave away 10,000 tickets to get people in the stadium and then proceeded to sell 10,000 tickets. Instead, the history says you give away a bunch of tickets or give them away for $1 or $5 or whatever it is, and then no one comes to any of your other games because they don't want to pay. They got it for free. And when I worked at the Chicago Red Stars, at one point when I was the sales director up at the Chicago Red Stars, and the owner of the team said to me, well, listen, what do you think about doing a promotion where we'll make all tickets $10? All tickets to the stadium are $10. We'll sell out the stadium, okay? And I said to him, look, find me one example of a sports team doing that and it working, and I'll agree to it. But if you can't find me an example of someone doing it and it working, then I say no. I refuse to do it. And he couldn't find one.
Yeah.
And it's because historically it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's a very temporary fix with a very long term. The pain is long term. The pleasure is short term, and you pay for it on the back end. So yeah. It is important to protect the value of your product. And at the end of the day, the Houston Dynamo are a very good product. We play exciting soccer. We have a very nice stadium. I think that we have people who are trained to give excellent customer service. I think that going to BBVA Compass Stadium and seeing the Dynamo, to me, is money well spent. Are the concession prices too high? Of course they are. But they're that way in every stadium. You know what I mean? That's the concession companies control that. And it's like, everyone's got to get a cut on that stuff. Do you know why concert T-shirts are $50 when you go to a concert?
Yeah, it's because of the markup, because everybody needs their cut, because you got the merch guys have to get their cut. The merch people want their cut. The stadium wants their cut. The band wants their cut. The band needs to pay all the people that are working at their merch booth. So all that. So next thing you got $50 concert T-shirts, and that's the same reason why we have $15 hot dogs. It's the same deal. And so defining the concession price, I would love to see us have lower concession prices, but that notwithstanding, I think that the Houston Dynamo are a great product, and I think we should protect their value. Absolutely.
So I'm okay with occasional promotions. I am not okay with giving away scads of tickets. I'm not okay with doing things that make season ticket holders feel that they're being, why am I spending all this money on season tickets when everyone else gets tickets for $1.50? Like, why would I do that? I think it is important to protect your value. It is important to make your season ticket holders see the value in being season ticket holders. It's the same thing with partial plan season ticket holders. The same thing with your group buyers. All of the things that we do and can control are important to do so that people see the value in the Houston Dynamo. And giving tickets away for $1 is a good way to make people think that the Dynamo are worth $1.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me add to that, and I think you'll agree with this, Jay. At the end of the day, if your response to we're not getting enough people in seats or we're not selling enough tickets is let's lower the cost and let's give them away for free, as a sales staff, you kind of got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, we're doing something wrong, because that type of promotion is geared for a situation where people don't know about the team. People don't know about the product. I don't think that's an issue in this city. I think the problem is the perceived value in this city. And at the end of the day, the perceived value of the Dynamo is it's a lot lower than the actual value of this team, the actual value of the entertainment product on the field, the actual value of the game day product. And it is really just frustrating to see so many people trying to say, well, I should get my ticket for free, or we should reduce costs for these tickets for this, that, or that, this, that, or the other reason. I like I said, I think occasional, deals and promos are fine, but you're reducing the value overall of the product, the perceived value of the product, simply because you can't sell enough tickets. That's on your sales staff. That's not on promos or the actual entertainment value or anything like that. Does that make sense to you, Jay?
Oh yeah, sure. And listen, our sales staff has made some significant strides from a year ago when I felt that we were at our lowest point. And keep in mind too, is in sales there's a lot of it's very transient. There's a lot of turnover in it. I'm going into my fourth season, which is almost unheard of. And there was another salesperson with me, Patrick, who was also going into his fourth season. And we have a couple who have been there for 2 seasons now. And we brought in some new salespeople. And one of the things that they've done, and I'll give you a little insight into some of the newer people that they've brought in that I think make a difference. I was talking about this with a coworker this afternoon. There's one guy they brought in who worked for 8 or 9 years selling, I think he worked for Verizon before this. And so he spent 8 or 9 years grinding, working in sales and something he didn't care about, and now gets to sell something that's fun and awesome. And he's happy to be there. And he's motivated and excited and working hard. We have another guy who just came from an NBA basketball team, which told us that the sales environment at the team was cutthroat. You had to watch your back all the time. You never knew who was going to try to steal your stuff. And so he is a hustler and a go-getter. And while our sales room is not that type of environment, he's brought the hustle necessary to keep tabs on all your stuff to our room. And we have I hired a guy who I met at the Open Cup final last year, worked for the Bethlehem Steel. And he is a guy who worked like I did for a lower level team before getting here and knows what it's like to have to grind for a team with very little resources. And then you get to the Dynamo and suddenly you have all sorts of professional resources at your disposal and you only have to do one person's job. And it's like a revelation. You're grateful for everything, Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
These are the kind of people that we're hiring into the team. It's not anymore what we used to do, which was we would hire a bunch of green thumbs. I don't know. That's not the word I'm looking for. A bunch of rookies right out of college, put them in inside sales, and then promote them too early into account executive roles when they had no experience, no work ethic, no book of business, no ability to do those things on their own. And instead now we're actually investing into our sales team and hiring people with this type of experience, these various types of experience. And these people are coming into the team and they are self-driven, they're motivated, they have great work ethics, they're decent human beings, they're working hard, and that's what's going to make a big difference in the attendance this year.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, I completely agree. I've had a few conversations with a few different people, and I've heard a lot of positive things coming out of the service and the sales departments in general. And I think there's a definite shift in mentality overall that's taken place. And I think it's a good shift in mentality. Again, just like,
and we've got billboards now. So that's what everyone asked for. So we've got some frickin' billboards. So if I don't see 20,000 people on opening day, it's on you people. Come on, I see billboards.
Hey, Jay, do you think you can help out the guys down at RGV, please? Oh, dear Lord. But we'll talk about that tomorrow and down in the valley.
It's funny that you would say that because I spoke to someone who works with a lot of the folks at RGV, and he asked if I would be willing to come down there and talk to the salespeople at RGV.
Do it.
And I told him,
I beg you.
I told him absolutely, I would do it in a heartbeat.
That's good to hear, man. I hope it pays dividends, honestly, because we've had our share of gripes.
Plus, I've never been. I'd love to go down and visit their facility, see a game, do a little sales seminar with their staff. I'm totally down with it. I love doing sales training, so I would jump at the opportunity.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question.
Oh, no, we're not going to ask those questions. Jay, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to let you go, buddy, but we definitely appreciate you coming on. Definitely appreciate your insight, especially through this offseason and preseason. There's still 3 weeks left, roughly, before opening day. You got the exact number, Jay? How many days?
What's the day today?
The 12th.
12. 28 days, 16 plus 18 days.
18 days. Whew. It'll be here before we know it. That's for darn sure. And really, I mean, if you think about it, we've got kind of 2 weeks or 2 weeks before the first home match of the season, technically, because it's our home CCL match to kind of really kick off the season, if you think about it. So it is here, guys. I mean, craziness is as it is here. Jay, real quick, if there are any, for some strange reason, if there happen to be any youth club individuals that are out there that would like to get a hold of you to talk to you about youth club sales, talk to you about an opportunity to bring their team out, bring their kids out to get an opportunity to hang out with you and with learn about the Dynamo, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get in touch with you or with your team?
Sure.
And yeah.
Well, keep in mind, I still, like all salespeople in our office, we're full menu sellers. So whatever you're interested in, you don't have to be a youth soccer team. I'm happy to sell anyone anything that they're interested in. But I can be reached at the office at 713-276-7529. So again, that is 713-276-7529. I only say that phone number 80 times a day on voicemail, so I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. You can also email me at the letter J and then my last name, which is ADELBERG at HoustonDynamo.com. So it's like Jaddelberg at HoustonDynamo.com. If you are interested in finding me on the Twitter machine, it's just at my name, which is Jay Adelberg. Please keep in mind, as somebody learned this week, I do not argue with anyone on Twitter about anything. I'll just block you. It's as simple as that. It says in my bio, I have a no angry tweets policy, and I stand by it. You're not going to catch me making angry tweets under any circumstances. Also, as a reminder, there's a community event on the 28th of February at Dale-Crest Field, which is out on the west side. The Dynamo are partnering with Total Football Club and our Academy West out there. So it's a soccer night out. It's from, I think, 6 to 8 p.m. at Dale-Crest Field. We'll have a couple of Dynamo players out there signing autographs. Diesel will be there, and it's just a general soccer carnival. It is open to the public, and it's the Dynamo and Total Football Club partnering on that, and those are always a good time. So if you got nothing to do on February 28th, come hang out with us out at Dale-Crest Field.
Awesome. Again, thank you very much, Jay. We certainly appreciate you coming on the show. As always, we will get you back on sometime later this season. But for now, sir, go hit the grind again, guys, or go enjoy the rest of your evening, one of the two. But we appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll enjoy listening to the rest of the show. You guys keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take another break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more Dynamo preseason. We'll discuss the first two match results. We'll discuss CCL a little bit and our opponent, Guastatoya. And then we will start to dive in a little bit into the RGV stuff and kind of give Edson some opportunity to talk about what's coming up on DITV this week.
All right. Don't go away just yet. And be sure, if you guys have not shared out this live stream, be sure and share it out with your friends, with your family, with your grandma, whatever, your worst enemy. But share this live stream, and be sure to also like this video. We would greatly appreciate it. We will be right back. Don't go away just yet.
I wake up early, I sleep alone. I try to find love from a stranger on my phone. My vision blurry, so I forget. Dying to hold you, but you left me here for dead. How could I do what I've done if I'm in love? You know I did what I did, you loaded the gun. And I don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Yeah, I didn't mean to do it every day. I do it anyway. Messing with monsters up in my head. Lie to myself lying beside her in my bed. Paint over pictures you left behind. I'd punch the walls if it would make you change your mind. How could I do what I've done if I'm in love? You know I did what I did, you loaded the gun. And I don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Yeah, I didn't mean to do it every day. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. Don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. How could I do what I've done if I'm in love? You know I did what I did, you loaded the gun. And I don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Yeah, I didn't mean to do it every day. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. Don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway.
All right, guys, we are back for more Gen Orange. It is 8:08 right now. I'd give shout out to everybody who is out there on the chat. Thank you so much for continuously participating throughout this this show. Currently, we have 16 people watching. Thank you all so much for your support. We got 8 likes. Lovely people out there. Let me see what has been said so far. Oh, Harry asked what would be the cheapest way to park at BBVA Compass Stadium. Yeah, like Cisco said, you can try to find street parking. I know the cheaper options are usually a lot more farther away from the stadium, and they're in pretty much unpaved places. So if you like huge holes sometimes, and you want to pay $10 for that, then that's one alternative. But you can also try to find street parking, come in a little bit earlier, and hopefully you'll get lucky on that. Excuse me. So Sean, what do we got next? So we're going to be talking a little bit more about Dynamo preseason. So we started this year playing against RGVFC twice. Oh, that is not what I wanted. Okay. So we started this preseason playing with RGV. I know the first match was on a Saturday and it was open to the public. I know, Sean, you were there at that match. What did you think about it?
I thought Kiki looked great. I thought Beasley looked good. I thought Elise and Kyoto looked good. But it was also, and not to speak down about RGV players or the quality of RGV, but there was definitely a difference in the level of talent. With that being said, though, Connor Donovan and Kyle Adams absolutely were very stout in center defense. I feel bad for the RGV right back. Kyoto ate his lunch repeatedly. But outside of that, I thought on both sides it was very good. Both sides had opportunities going forward. Did you get to? Well, no, because the second match was a closed door scrimmage.
Yeah.
So nobody got to see that one.
So from what we know about that match was that RGVFC in the first half was winning 1-0 thanks to a goal by Malik Foster. And I believe that was when both teams were playing their starters, per se. And then in the second half, right away, you got Tommy McNamara being fouled. He scores the penalty. And right at the end, Marlon Harrison takes advantage of a corner kick by Memo and slots it in for the 2-1 final score for the Houston Dynamo in that second match. But overall, I found it really surprising, per se, that... But then, I mean, we did have, like, that last year, the Dynamo won 9-0, and then all of a sudden it's just, like, close matches of these two preseason games. So I think it shows that RGV has kind of gelled, and I think it was a better preparation. There were better preparation matches for the Dynamo to kick off their 2019 preseason.
So let me ask you a question. This is RGV related. Is Malik Foster a younger guy, or is he a veteran player?
As far as I know, he's young. Malik Foster is 22. Yeah, he's 22 years old. Okay.
So whoever they had playing up top, with was it with Aldo? No, with Carlos Small. In the first two periods. Well, first period of play specifically. Whoever they had paired up with him up top, and I don't know who it was. Honestly, I don't. He was really good, and I feel like he would be a very good veteran. He played very veteran-like, so that's why I asked if Malik was a veteran, because I wasn't sure. I suspect it wasn't Malik, because the guy didn't look 22. The guy looked like 29 or 30 or something. Mm-hmm. And he may have just been a trialist, but if he was just a trialist, RGV need to sign that fool, because he was good. And there were times that he was unlocking and beating Dynamo defenders, not their center backs, but the beating AJD on that right side.
Okay, was this in the first match?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the open practice.
Okay, so if you're talking about the first period, correct?
Yeah, it should have been the first period. Yeah.
Okay, you're probably talking about either Andres Arcila or Andy Cabrera.
It wasn't Andy. It was the other guy.
It was probably Andres Arcila, because I mean Chuy Enriquez played that.
It wasn't Chuy.
That match, but you know Chuy.
Yeah, I would have recognized Chuy. It wasn't Chuy, and it wasn't Cabrera. So and it wasn't either of the Cabrera boys. It was most definitely the other one,
Andres Arcila.
And man, if he's not signed, they need to give him a contract. In my opinion, personally, because he looked good.
I think he's a trialist right now. So
you should just throw that out there at Gerson. Just be like, hey, Gerson, y'all need to sign this guy. I mean, remember, I'm the one who called Derek Luke being crap. So
and John Montaño.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, anybody could have called him crap to begin with. So, but with that being said, I mean, coming out of those two matches, those two preseason matches and scrimmages, it was good to see the improvement on the RGV side. It had me a little concerned from the Dynamo side because while they were getting chances, they weren't on frame. And now, granted, also on the flip side of that, Tyler, Derek, and Joe Willis were in goal for Dynamo and RGV. And then in the third period of 3, it was Michael Nelson and Dynamo and Nico Cordy in goal. So it was those were MLS level keepers, and so I think that definitely, because both of them made saves. Tyler Derrick saved a penalty kick by Elise, which I felt like Elise didn't get as much power as he probably could have. I think he tried to place it and just didn't place it well. But all at the same time, to say that, it had me a little concerned to start the preseason off with a 0-0 draw, or not a 0-0, a 1-0 victory against RGV players to start the preseason. That had me a little bit wary. But what I saw in that match in the center of field was Matthias Vera just dominating players. And then I didn't get to see the closed door scrimmage, but I did get to watch the Minnesota match in the Mobile Sun Cup, I think was where that one was. And Vera absolutely, without a doubt, dominated that midfield there as well. And you saw it in, he would get a turnover and he would push the ball up the field for the break. It was just really, like, I genuinely breathed a sigh of relief at how well the team played, because they played a lot better, and this was against, for the most part, MLS level competition. So that was good to see. Did you get a chance to watch that match by any chance, Edson?
I wasn't able to watch the Minnesota match. No, I was extremely sick that night.
That's right. Did you get a chance to watch the Seattle match?
I watched the Seattle match for the first half. I was extremely worried in the first half because I saw that Seattle was completely dominating our defense. They had in my opinion, I think they had a lot of chances, and if I recall correctly, I believe the couple of chances that we had in the first half, we missed a clear opportunity right in front of goal. So that had me worried there that going up against the big guys for Seattle, that I thought we were being eaten alive.
I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch the Seattle match. I was busy and didn't tune in for that. But I did read up on everything. I did watch the highlights after. I think and everybody's going to say, yeah, but it was against the Tacoma Defiance players. It wasn't against Seattle players. That's true, but it's also preseason. I need to see it in season to really kind of give my thoughts on that. But I thought it was good to see the team, come back on Seattle, regardless of whether it was Seattle 2 or not. It shows that, regardless of anything else, it shows that our substitutes are as good as we hope they can be. And it shows that, there's not a huge drop in talent going from starter to sub, which I think was an issue a little bit last season where, again, our only subs that we could use were defenders because we had to use a defender sub in the first 15 minutes, it felt like, of every match, or we just didn't have any available. So, and again, it's preseason, so it's hard to say. Wilbur maybe was playing around with tactics a little bit. I think this coming match against tomorrow against KC, I think will provide us a better idea of what we're looking at moving forward. But looking at the schedule, I mean, you've got KC on Wednesday, you've got Guastatoya next Tuesday, you've got Guastatoya the Tuesday after that back here in Houston. You've got RSL back here in Houston here in Houston for the 2nd, which is the opener. You've got Montreal here on the 9th, which is the 2nd week of season. You've got Vancouver here on the 16th, which is the 3rd week of the season. We go away to Colorado the 4th week of the season on the 30th. We're back here April 13th against San Jose. Back on the road against LA Galaxy on the April 19th. Back here for Columbus Crew on April 27th, and then we play our first rivalry match against FCD, Texas Derby match on May 4th. That is a 3 p.m. kickoff on May 4th. I don't know about you, but I've lived in Houston long enough to know there is zero probability that match is actually played at 3 o'clock, because MLS now has this rule in place that if it is hotter than 90 degrees, I think even, if it's hotter than 90 degrees or 92 degrees, whatever it is.
And I think they also take into consideration the humidity.
They do. They have something for humidity as well. And it's May. It is going to be hot. It is going to be very, very hot. And it's going to be very sunny at 3 p.m. And so I suspect they'll push that back by 2, 3, even 4 hours. And I think that'll end up being a 7 p.m. Kick, if not later.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That just means everybody's going to be at the stadium for a bunch of hours just hanging out and playing around. But, you know, I mean, you say, oh, no, but it's also an FCD match. And I think there will be enough people that will be there for the Texas Derby that while you're going to have those that complain that, oh, man, they should have thought of that better when they were scheduling, the Dynamo don't specifically have control over the times of those matches. That's an MLS decision. So, and they'll probably reschedule it when they get closer to May, just like they have in the past, where they go, okay, yeah, it's going to be hot. We know it's going to be hot. We need to go ahead and push it back. So yeah, you know, on the flip side of that, though, it could be if they do play it if they push it back, that means that you have like the Texian Army tailgate. That thing can be going 5 hours long, 6-7 hours long. If they push it back to 5 hours long, because they'll probably start at 10, 11. They'll probably start about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, a few hours before kickoff. So you go 12 to 7. That's 7 hours of tailgating, man. That's pretty awesome. So, you know, it would definitely get the fans fired up, although everybody would be drunk off their butts. So there's that to keep in mind. But, you know, I just continue to look at the schedule. And then after the FCD match, you have Seattle on the road May 11th. We're back here against Portland May 15th. And then here again against DC United May 18th. And then we have a string of a lot of away matches in a row. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's the summer months, and we typically play away during the summer months. But even then, I'm looking at our schedule, and let's see, how many matches is this? Hold on, let me see. Starting in June, from June on, we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 matches at home, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 matches away. To end the season. So it's the flip opposite. It's the flip opposite to end the season that it is to start the season. So actually it's even worse than that, because it's 13 away and 9 at home.
Yeah. And
it's not very balanced to end the season. We have a string where we have in June, we have 3 away matches back to back to back, 22nd, 26th, and 29th. And that's the worst part about that is it's 22nd and 26th at Portland and San Jose, which that's not too bad because it's a short travel. But then we, on the 29th, 3 days after our San Jose away match, we go play away at New England. Oof. That's just harsh. And then we come back and play on the 3rd at home against New York Red Bulls. And then we go fly out and play at FC Cincy on July 6th. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in this schedule with these midweek matches and things like that. And there's a run August 3rd here against Chicago, August 8th against New York City FC in New York, August 11th in Philly away, come back here for August 17th against Colorado, and then go up to Dallas August 24th, and then KC August 31st away. So there's definitely some away runs in here, road stretches in here that are going to be tough, and it's not specifically the opponents. It's just the number of matches in such a short period of time to have to do. And I want to throw a shout out to Jeff, Sergio, and Cisco. They're trying to coordinate for themselves a little away match setup where they're going to go to New York away and then Philly away, New York away and Philly away, because they're so close together that they can actually do that. So shout out to those guys for trying to coordinate that and get that organized for themselves. But getting back to the preseason, next up, really at the end of the day, besides SKC, is going to in the Mobile Sun Mini Cup, which again we don't really care about. After that is Guastatoya. So Guatemalan team, you mentioned that they have how many games that they played already? 8?
Something around there.
And no points out of any of those matches.
Because they're in last place right now. They have played. Let me tell you that right now. Okay. Lost, tied. They have 2 ties so far. 3 ties. They've tied 3 and they've played 6 matches in league. They've tied 3. So they only have 3 points, and they are currently in last place.
So I mean, look, honestly, genuinely speaking, we shouldn't struggle against Guastatoya. On the flip side of that, you're going to Guatemala. You're playing a match in Guatemala. That's never easy. Eddie Robinson has stories he can tell about playing in Caribbean nations, playing in Central American nations. And it's never fun for the players. It's always a grind. It's always tough. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Dynamo adapt to that and how the Dynamo play against that. I suspect, knowing Wilmer, I think Wilmer tells the guys, look, this match, we just don't want to concede any goals. We're perfectly fine with the draw, because once we're here in Houston, and I know that's a terrible thing to think because away goals rule sucks, but once we're here in Houston, we're going to run them into the ground. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they come out in Guastatoya, in Guatemala, but I suspect they'll kind of hold back a little bit, which, like I said, on the one hand, it sucks. On the other hand, I'm kind of like, okay, I can understand why they would do that. Yeah. But it's certainly interesting. I think also from going back to preseason real quick, I think it's important to also give a shout out to Marlon Hairston, who's looked very good this preseason. Tommy Mack, I think he's still trying to find his place. I've seen the creativity out of him that I know he has, and it's been fantastic. It's just getting other players to know when he's going to make those passes, when he's going to make the back heel, when he's going to chip it over the top of a defender, those types of things, making sure the players he's playing with understand when those moves are going to be made, when he's going to try the cheeky thing. And I think cheeky is okay sometimes. Sometimes that's enough to get the defense out of sorts and create amazing opportunities. So we'll see for sure. But, it's my position right now, looking at things coming up, I think we're positioned very well. Because, again, we have one more match. Then we have about a week, roughly 6 days before we have the match in Guatemala. Then we have a week coming back here. We'll have a week. Then we'll play here. And then we have a week and a few days. Or a week and a few days. Is that right? 26. Yeah, that's like 6 days. 5 days, 6 days, something like that, before we play 5 days, before we play RSL here at home, then a week before we play Montreal here at home, then a week before we play Vancouver here at home. So that kind of initial setup to the season right there, I think it's pretty well organized for us to actually do really well to start the season. And I mentioned this earlier in the Discord chat, or actually in YouTube chat. In my opinion, we have to take, considering the number of home matches, I mean, we have 3 home matches to start the season, and then 7 out of 10, 9, maybe not quite that many. 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 6 out of 8 to start the season at home. We definitely, with that in mind, I do feel like we definitely have to get it. It is not unreasonable to think that we should pull out of those 6 matches at home. We should come away with a minimum of 15 points. And you can't do that if you're drawing at home to start the season. That's winning 5 out of 6 matches at home and really drawing the other match. There's no other way to get to 15 points other than that, really. And so, but if we do that, if we can come out with that kind of fire, then we're going to be top of the table at that point. And there's no doubt in my mind, nobody's going to come out and have that kind of a start. So if we can do it, we're going to be set up really, really well moving forward. And that also benefits us if we start really well MLS play. That means that if and when we do advance in CCL play and we have to play Tigres or Saprissa, we'll be better set up to handle that because we'll already have gotten those points that we needed out of the start of the season. That if we if we end up dropping a match in MLS play, it's not going to quite be as bad as it would be if we dropped early matches, especially our home matches early on in the season. But other than that, now's another good time to take a break. When we come back, I think it's time for a little DITV Express, a little teaser. Talk to us about what you guys are going to talk about tomorrow. And then after that, we'll talk a few news and notes from the off season around MLS and U.S. women's national team discussion. And then we'll close out. Sure.
Just before we go on break, I just want to give a quick shout out to David Loredo, who donated to us $5. He says for the beers.
For the beers.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Para las chelas.
Nice.
Thank you so much, David, for your donation. We greatly appreciate it. Be sure you haven't liked this video, be sure to give it a like and share it with your friends. Just a quick reminder that Generation Orange will be going every Tuesday whenever there's no CONCACAF Champions League match that day. If it's not Tuesday, it'll be on a Wednesday. But we are going to be trying to be doing Generation Orange almost every week now that the Dynamo has been starting their matches. So we'll be back in a little bit. Don't go away just yet.
You're a shut up, sit down artist. At the back door, man, a shakedown artist. After this, you need a makeup artist. I'm listening, trying to figure where your heart is. I pick apart, trying to figure where the art is. Couple minutes, you'll be swimming in the darkness. Couple lyrics from the gang, that'll bang, bang, bang. Man, I look at all bang now. Couple minutes for the gang, spit slang so nang. Man, I looking at pack down. Come around with the big man vibe, get a 2-2 slap and a bigger man pat down. It's 4 beggars and a bruck out thing, man, I shut down shop in a little man background. I'm a straight up breakout. Worldwide shut down, I'm a breakout. Big moves, big G's, I'm a breakout. More tracks, more racks for the breakout. More food, man, I'm looking like takeout. Now fools like cookies at a stakeout. Bare bites for the lash for the breakout. Gang, it's a breakout.
For a name, seen a lot of man live for the likes, the things people do for the fame, the things people do to remain in view when the game's askew. This is strange. Me, I peep the whole scene from a distance, watch it unfold frame by frame. I've been steady up in levels, training heavy with the rebels while they're dealing with the devil. I'm out dealing out the heckles like my skin was made of metal. I've been raising hell out here in the jungle. Pick up my brothers who stumble. That big shit ain't nothing. I couldn't break down to rubble. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Break out.
I'm a straight up breakout. Worldwide shut down, I'm a breakout. Big moves, big G's, I'm a breakout. More tracks, more racks for the breakout. More food, man, I'm looking like takeout. Now fools like cookies at a stakeout. Bare bites for the lash for the breakout. Gang, it's a breakout.
All right, guys, welcome back to Generation Orange. My name is Edson Ochoa. I don't think we presented ourselves by name in this show.
Oh, they know who we are. They know who know.
To everybody who's new, my name is Edson, and he is Sean Ringrose, and you can follow us on our social media, which are posted right below our video feeds. So be sure to follow us on Twitter. Also, be sure to follow us at Gen Orange Radio on Twitter. And we are working on bringing in, of course, we actually do have a Facebook page. That's right. I created one. So be sure to follow facebook.com/Gen Orange Radio as well. We will be notifying you through our social media whenever we go live. Be sure to also, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Down in the Valley. And we hope that there will be a lot more things coming in the future. You just be patient, guys. But better things are coming. We are growing, and it is impossible without y'all's support.
Very true. Very true. So, Edson, what do you guys have coming up on Down in the Valley tomorrow?
All right. So I think there's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting show. But first, we're going to have Jacob. We're going to have Ray. We're going to be talking about RGVFC preseason. Last 2 weeks ago, we talked about all our acquisitions. We talked about Malik Foster. That it's going to be an interesting acquisition because apparently it's going to be on a short-term loan rather than a regular 6-month loan. But that all has to do with the Costa Rican club Alajuelense, who dictated that they wanted him back by June. So we're going to be pretty much using him and taking advantage of the short time he's on here. Right now, he actually made the trip with the Dynamo over to the Mobile Mini Sun Cup. So he's getting some MLS experience over there, if you can call it that. Also, we will be talking about RGVFC season tickets. Hopefully we'll have a representative on. Just like today we had Jay Adelberg. We hope to have somebody from RGV on the show tomorrow. I will be confirmed tomorrow if this will or not happen. So be sure to follow us at downintheRGV.com. We will be talking about this past Sunday's match where we played UTRGV men's soccer team, and the Toros drew 1-1 against UTRGV. It was an interesting match because for all the periods that were played, RGV always played a mixture of some starters and some trialists. So it wasn't an all-starters. So we haven't seen all the cards yet for RGVFC. Hopefully, and I don't think we'll see that against Houston Baptist University this weekend either. It'll probably be in 2 weeks when we play the Austin Bold at HB Park. So it'll be interesting to see the starters, or what Coach Echeverry deems will be the starters, to start gelling. Now that we'll also have Malik Foster back on the roster, and who knows, maybe RGV might decide to sign somebody else. I mean, we never know.
That sounds like a hint to me.
Not really. That's just wishful thinking on my end.
That was very much a Sean move, if there ever was one. I have to give you credit and props for that. So, you're learning, Edson. I'm very proud of you. So who are the players to watch this season in RGV?
Well, the players to watch this season right now, it's going to be, I'm going to just say it, it's going to be Malik Foster. I think Malik Foster bringing in some of that Costa Rican First Division experience is going to be a huge asset, especially for U.S. Second Division. I think he's going to be more influential and I'm just going to give the hot take right now. I think he's going to be more influential than Carlos Esmal, and Carlos Esmal was very influential when he came in. Another one to look out for now that he's been here for a whole year, I think it's going to be Chuy. I think how Chuy connects with Malik Foster, how he connects with Carlos Esmal and Aldo Quintanilla. I think it'd be interesting to see how well he gels and if he has a bigger impact right off the bat in the season. And I think one more person that we got to look out for is going to be Brandon Morales, our RGVFC Academy signing. If he decides to stay with RGVFC, then it'd be interesting how many minutes he gets under Coach Echeverry, and how he matures as a professional. And also, before we continue, Victor Garza's back. He's back from injury. He's also another homegrown from McAllen, Texas. He used to play with Tigres, and he actually played in the Copa Libertadores. So he does have a little bit of experience in international play. So it'll be good to have him back.
So we actually saw in the open practice, we saw quite a bit of Cabrera.
Well, that's all you're gonna see from him.
So he's going to Butler.
Yes.
I was about to ask you. So, I mean, the college soccer season is not very long.
Mm-hmm.
Are you certain he's not going to play some role in RGV in the future very soon?
Well, I would have to investigate more on what's going to happen. But due to NCAA rules, there's
NSCAA.
Yeah. If anything, he might be back. He might be back with the Cavalry. I'm not sure, but I don't think for now that he's committed to Butler, I don't think he'll be back with the Toros.
So how do you feel about that?
Well, I've always been a guy that's been like, you gotta have your priorities straight. I think that the career for a soccer player is so short that you gotta have something to fall back on. If let's say if for some reason you get a career-ending injury like a Dylan Remick or something along those lines, you got to have something where you can fall back on, say an education, a degree or something. Professionally, though, I think because NCAA is so much different, the way they play, the way it's structured compared to professional, I think it's going to be a step back for him professionally. I don't know. Like I said, we don't know if that was his personal decision in order to get a degree, or if he thinks that he'll get a better development in college. I'm assuming because minutes wise, maybe that's why he decided that. I'm not honestly. No one knows for sure but him.
Well, it's interesting to me because they played him up top with RGV in the first in the first period he was up top with RGV, and then the second and third periods he was up top with, or second period he was up top with the Dynamo, well, quote unquote Dynamo, RGV Light. And so it was just interesting to me because it almost felt like it was an audition for him. And I honestly thought that he actually played pretty well. Caught me by surprise. I didn't expect him to play that well. And so I feel like maybe they were trying to audition or give him an opportunity. And if he showed really well in their eyes and did what they wanted, then I think they might have offered him a contract, because I find it interesting that his announcement came after those matches were done, after the bulk of preseason was over, and the team had a chance to kind of see how he was going to pan out. On the flip side of that, I agree with you. It's frustrating to me because it kind of tells me that Wilmer maybe hasn't fully bought into RGV a little bit. Because it's just one of those things that I'm looking at it from the outside looking in, and how, you know what I'm saying? Like, how does he not send him to RGV? He's good enough to play with RGV, in my opinion.
Hashtag blame Dynamo.
So, I mean, it's just interesting. It's just interesting from the outside looking in. It's interesting as a fan. It's interesting as an observer, a conscientious observer. And so we'll just have to definitely see how it plays out and how it pans out for him. But I definitely think it speaks to a growing frustration that you guys have had for a couple of seasons, but I think also Dynamo fans have had for a couple of seasons now as well, which is that RGV, and it's not RGV's fault, but the RGV to Dynamo pipeline is not producing, and it's obviously not a relevant option that players are seeing as of yet as a means to get to MLS play.
Yeah, but I feel like you mentioned the Dynamo fans being kind of, I think they're being unfair with the RGV team, or as far as like RGV organization is concerned. If anybody has at fault that RGV hasn't delivered when it comes to future first team players, it's the Dynamo. They're the ones in control of the technical aspect, and I think a lot of people don't know that or don't understand that. You know, I see in social media that RGV shouldn't have our developmental team, or, you know, RGV is a waste of money because you have players like Kevin Garcia, Charlie Ward that didn't make it in the Dynamo, or and others, you know. When in reality, who's the one that controls all the tactical aspects and the technical aspects of RGV? Who's the one that decides, okay, this kid from the academy is ready to go professional, let's put him in RGV? It's the Dynamo. It's not RGVFC.
It makes me wonder, though, if that gulf in talent between USL play and MLS play isn't growing wider and wider. Because there's not a lot of players coming out of USL consistently that are making it in MLS as, you know, as long-term starters. You get your occasional Dom Dwyers, you get your occasional Sebastian Ibiagas, but they're the rare exception to the rule. And, you know, if I look at like baseball, the return on my investment for most of my AAA prospects is a whole lot better than what I'm getting out of USL to MLS.
How long has minor AAA baseball been established?
Oh, God. Cisco can probably answer that. It's probably been around for 80 to 90 years.
I don't think partnerships between MLS and USL have been along.
They haven't. They haven't. They've only been there for like 8 to 10.
And then
which I think is fair. I think it's fair, but I think it's also important to remember that's all we have to compare it to. I mean, now maybe the better comparison at this point might be like NFL Europe to NFL, because NFL Europe was an opportunity for players that weren't good enough to necessarily be on that. They were the ones on the edge of NFL talent. Kind of the same thing. You know, USL is for players that are kind of on the edge, players that need some more time, players that need some technical development and things like that. But it's just interesting because the more I see of this, the more I see that there are huge opportunities if teams can figure out how to make it work, because that provides you essentially, especially the way the Dynamo are set up, that provides you a whole secondary roster to fill out.
So now keep in mind this as well when it comes to USL. So right now we might see some growth in a couple of years due to League One being established as well. However, right now there aren't any that have been made public, any partnerships between USL and League One teams. But another thing that I do want to mention is a lot of our USL clubs don't have their own academy.
No.
Or if they do, they rely on outside academies in order to get
except for RGV.
Well, RGV has theirs, San Antonio has theirs, and obviously all the two teams, well, they have their parent academies that they work for. And even then, not including the Red Bulls, a lot of S2 at the time, now Tacoma Defiance, Portland Timbers 2.
Red Bulls Academy.
Well, the Red Bulls Academy, what I was more along the lines of, they haven't been successful at bringing in first-team talent or as successful as, for example, New York Red Bulls.
No, that's fair. It was just, it's just, I look at it and I'm just, there's an intriguing aspect to that, right? It's like, there's definitely an opportunity to groom players and to create a pipeline. And the first team that does it effectively is going to gain the benefit of it more than anybody else, because it's going to become like FC Dallas has had kind of the reins tautly pulled on youth soccer in Texas. I think it's going to kind of be similar to that when it comes to USL. If the Dynamo can figure it out before Frisco or before Austin or before San Antonio or whatever, then the Dynamo and RGV are going to be the ones to reap the benefits, in that those players that are coming out of academies, those players that are coming up from academies that are USL specific academies, they're going to be more likely to want to sign with the Dynamo and sign with RGV because they see the actual true potential there. They've seen it work. And Kevin Garcia, he's kind of a possibility on that, like he's got that opportunity, but to me, he's not that player. You need a player that shows well enough, plays a season, maybe two in RGV, and then moves directly to the, to the MLS club, to the Dynamo. And maybe he doesn't start right away, kind of like a Memo, right? He's a guy that doesn't start right away. The only drawback is, I think Memo, the problem there is he's not a starter, in my opinion. He's, his size makes him tough to not be a sort of starter. I think, on the flip side of it, I also think him not getting minutes has made it tough for him to become a starter. And you also have Elise and Kyoto ahead of him. And that's going to be tough. That's tough for anybody to break through.
Yeah.
I think where we could see a player come up through the ranks is at center back, like a Colin McHugh, or Eric McHugh. Sorry, Eric McHugh. I said Colin McHugh the other day, and I meant Eric. Eric McHugh coming up through the ranks. And, Jay mentioned the U15s that just got called up to the national teams. Those guys are going to be coming up pretty soon, and they have a very good shot to be signed as homegrown talent, and they're going to be at RGV. So you're going to, and I've mentioned this to you before, but you guys are going to start seeing at RGV more of these academy players coming through the Dynamo system, and they're players that are actually MLS ceiling talent instead of, again, USL ceiling talent, which means that your top level talent capable players are going to be better than what most USL teams have at their disposal. But it's just interesting. We can dive into it, and we have, 100 different ways from Sunday. But every time I think about it and I talk about it, it's just there's a lot of depth to it, right? There's a lot to discuss involved with it, and a lot that I think most people don't think about when they're thinking about RGV and the Dynamo. We only have a few minutes, and I wanted to bring this up. So just a quick few things that happened this offseason that, in my opinion, were fairly big moves. Ike Opara was traded to Minnesota. Ozzy Alonso signed in Minnesota. Minnesota looks really good, in my opinion, this season. DC United looks really good this season. So MLS level, I'm intrigued to see. I'm honestly intrigued to see it because of all the movement that's taken place this offseason. I think LA Galaxy are going to be another team that's going to struggle again this year. I think they're going to have their flashy moments, but I also think they're going to have a lot of really poor performances. I think Atlanta does not repeat this season. I think the loss of Almiron, I don't think it's Almiron as I was about to get to that. I don't think it's Almiron as much as it is Tata. I think losing Tata is going to hurt them tremendously. Even though they got a good coach, I still think that change is going to be felt very heavily early in the season, and it's going to be hard for them to overcome that at a certain point in the season and still find their way to becoming a powerhouse team like they were last season. I think Colorado has an opportunity to actually be a really good team this season. But we'll have to see. Every year there are teams that make good moves in the offseason, and there are teams that don't make many moves. And it's always hard to tell what teams are going to kind of be your breakout breakout teams every season, and even harder to tell, who your dark horses are going to be. Mm-hmm. But let's move from that real quick. I got to hit on this because this came out today. The U.S. Women's National Team roster was released for the She Believes Cup later this year. And the Kalia Ohai, Sofia Huerta, and most notably Jane Campbell were left off the rosters. Now, Jane Campbell is in their camp and is there, but she effectively is quote-unquote ineligible to play in the She Believes Cup, but that's because Ellis decided to carry 4 other goalkeepers on the She Believes Cup roster, or maybe just 3. And I genuinely believe Jane Campbell is ahead of every one of them. Having watched her play with the Dash this past season, she is by and far better than the rest of them, with the exception of possibly Adriana Franch. But even then, I struggle because I think Jane Campbell is better overall. And I think some people will look at the goals against for the Dash this season and say, well, that's Jane giving up goals. But really, that was the defense putting Jane on an island every once in a while. Yeah. And it was Jane's responsibility to clean up the mess. And more often than not, she cleaned up the mess. And I think, really, I think a fair calculation of who's the better goalkeeper would come away from shots against versus goals against, looking at those two stats as a ratio and seeing who was allowing more goals in the net. And, I felt like, honestly speaking, that Jane Campbell let fewer goals in compared to the number of shots that she had to endure throughout the season. But yeah, I sat there and I looked at the roster and I scratched my head and I went, what the hell is Jill Ellis thinking? She needs a long-term goalkeeper because Naher's not that goalkeeper. Ashlyn Harris is not that goalkeeper. So she doesn't have a lot of options left, but she left off her really, in my opinion, the up-and-coming keeper that should be the long-term starter for them. Mm-hmm. So, it's frustrating. I say all that because I wanted to do this too. I want to plug Mixed Zone coming out, should be out tomorrow or tomorrow or Thursday. So stay tuned for that because I can tell you that on the show this week on Mixed Zone, Jen Cooper is going to talk about that exactly and the entire U.S. Women's National Team roster and her thoughts on that. And you do absolutely not want to miss that.
Also a member of the Beautiful Game Network, just like Down in the Valley.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome that the Mix Zone is on Beautiful Game Network. I think that's fantastic. With that being said, Edson, do you have anything else you want to add for the show? I mean, we're at that point, man.
No, not really. I think we've pretty much covered everything we needed to cover for this week. There was a lot of news that needed to be said. We kind of touched up upon it. We also touched up on Albert Elise not leaving for Fenerbahce and Houston Dynamo taking that right decision. Just pretty much want to remind you all, if you guys are interested in hearing more about RGV, be sure to tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. On this same YouTube channel as Jacob, Ray, and I will be going live for Down in the Valley. So also be sure to follow our social media at Gen Orange Radio on Twitter. Facebook.com/Gen Orange Radio for Facebook, and be sure to also follow our personal Twitters, which are below us right there, where Sean is pointing out. And thank you guys for joining us for this regular 2-hour episode of Generational Orange.
Wait, I have one last thing. Shout out to Darby Lockridge, who will now be writing for MLS Female.
Yes. So be sure to keep an eye out on that, and be sure to support her. Read her articles, share them out. They really do help. Trust me, it does help a lot when people are interested in reading and sharing your works out to others. So having said this, I think it's time to call it a night, Sean. Hopefully we'll be back. We should be back next Wednesday. We'll be talking more. We'll be talking about the Watastoya match away.
I mean, let's rephrase that, Edson. We will be back next Wednesday to talk about the Watastoya match. Unless you can't make it, I know I can make it.
I can make it.
Okay, then we're on for Wednesday. We may push the time back 30 minutes or something like that. We'll talk about it, but we're definitely going live Wednesday, and we will be going live the Wednesday after that because we have another Tuesday match. So definitely just know those 2 weeks specifically, we are going Wednesday instead of Tuesday. But then the week following that, we'll be back on Tuesdays, and this is an every week show except for the off season. So just keep in mind, guys, we will be here. We will be on YouTube. We will be on Down in the Valley YouTube, and
we're also gonna be trying to do to be more consistent with the actual syndicated podcast version.
Yes, but not this week because I haven't talked to Osmar because I've been so freaking busy and totally forgot. So unless you've talked to Osmar, which I don't think you did, so that'll just have to wait till next time. But with that said, hey guys, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you every week. And remember, guys, stay forever orange.
Hashtag we are todos.
And dash TF
on. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the new layout for Generation Orange. Feedback is always appreciated. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Have a good night.
Later, guys.